Hey, it's Gavin Jackson, and this is our live lead taping from Charleston, South Carolina, specifically Mount Pleasant at Hobcaw Brewing. Want to be specific there. We love that. So it will sound a little bit roomier. That's the magic of live taping, but take a listen. Enjoy the conversation that we had with the Post and Courier's Caitlin Byrd. From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on December 11th, 2025, live from Hobka Brewing in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. How we doing out there, Mount Pleasant? Yes, this is our fourth and final live taping of the year, and it's great to be back on the road for our year-end holiday sales event, I think. Buy yourself a new car. It's also great to be in the 1st Congressional District of South Carolina with senior politics reporter Caitlin Byrd of the Post and Courier. I should know that because I've been a former employee of the Post and Courier. Long time ago.
Long-time friend of the pod.
Long-time friend of the pod. Caitlin, welcome Hobcaw Brewing. Let's go right into it. The governor's race, Caitlin. It's amongst us.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, where's that sound effect, AT? But let's start off. It is the biggest statewide race. It's probably kind of I feel like it's simmering right now. It hasn't been boiling over. We'll say that for the spring, but it has been simmering in the background amongst all the other news going on. And of course, we're right around the corner of 2026. In the June primary, it will be shortly thereafter, where voters will choose the Democrat and the Republican nominee for governor. So again, the primary is the big deal here. I don't want to ruin any surprises for November, but we are a solid Republican state when it comes to statewide voting. So that's why the primary is so important. But again, any registered voter can cast a ballot in either primary, but not both, sorry. But right now we have 2 Democrats and 5 Republicans running. So Caitlin, go broad for me. How is the field looking right now? What's happening? What's the vibe check of this race as you see it covering politics?
Right now the vibe check is a little chaotic for December. I can't believe it's December and we're already seeing dueling candidates on the Republican ticket going after each other on CNN. So just when you think you understand South Carolina politics, we get a curveball, which makes it fun. But, it really is a wide open race and it is so early. We have 7 months until June, but it is gonna sneak up on us really fast. But it also means that there's a really long runway between now and then. And a lot can happen in 7 months. A lot has already happened in just 2, 4. Right now, I think we're seeing a couple of really strong contenders emerging and battling on the Republican side for the top 1 and 2 positions, but we're still so early that right now it seems like the battle is for name ID over anything else. And name ID doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win someone's vote. It just means people know who you are for better and for worse.
And just looking at polls right now, Caitlin, and I know some folks bring their own polls out. They have independent, they have
and lots
internal.
Of polls go in the trash. And we never see them for a good reason.
Yeah, only the good ones make it to the sun.
Only the good ones make it to us.
And a lot of times it's like 40% undecided, of course, because it is December. It is 6-7 months out. People aren't really paying attention right now. You're figuring out holiday shopping and stuff. And when you look at real clear politics right now, the average, just for a little baseline here, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evans at 19%, Congresswoman Nancy Mace is at 18%, Attorney General Alan Wilson around 15%, Congressman Ralph Norman at 10%, and State Senator Josh Kimbrell of Spartanburg's at 3%, really just kind of dragging there. And that's been the back and forth. Everyone, every time a new poll comes out, everyone's like, oh, I'm in the lead now. How do you maybe give some perspective on how you report on polling in the horse race? Because we always try to avoid that from becoming the big issue, and then people are shopping polls to you at the same time.
Yeah, for me, I'm really glad that you zeroed in first on the undecideds, because that's where my eyes go first right now based on where we are. Because the bigger that number gets, the more opportunity that's going to tell us that there is for people to make their cases to voters like all of us in this room. And if that number is shrinking steadily, then it tells me people are solidifying their choices, or at least narrowing their top 3, their top 2. And for me, the horse race is just that. It is so live, it's like a grenade in your hands. And right now, because it's so early, so much of the polling that we're getting is reactionary to things that are happening in the news. And if we look at the Republican race for governor right now, one person is really dominating headlines, two of them are really battling it out, and then it's very much reflected back in those polls. So I don't blame people for taking closer looks at them. I think it's wise to do so, but I don't think that you need to take it as fact, because it's a point in time, it's a snapshot, and it's going to change, and by the time it gets to us, 5 more headlines have come out.
Exactly.
Things may have already changed. So I try to take it in totality.
Yeah, I mean, and based on what you're seeing, I mean, when you do see these polls come out, and if it is coming from a campaign or if it's from like Winthrop or something a little bit more independent, I mean, do you jump on those, or do you just see them as, okay, this is a little bit of a point in time? I'm not going to say this is, I mean, we don't just say, oh, now we have a new leader. I mean, no one's rising above at this point. Everyone's just really just jockeying for position.
Yeah, and right now, especially, and I'm only zeroing in on the Republican side because of what Gavin said earlier, which is that this is such a historically Republican state, and we know that that's where the battle is going to be, is in the primary. We're not ignoring the Democrats. If anything, it's really fun to see what happens on the Democrat side. But we're talking about the Republicans right now. But, you know, it's interesting because it really is this strong trio. You know, we've got Nancy Mace, Alan Wilson, and then Pam Evett. It's those three kind of circling each other over and over again right now. They may as well be in a spin cycle. But for me, we don't jump on polling right away because it is point in time, because it is so early, and because it is not up to us to call someone a winner when they have not yet won a single vote in the state.
The media does not determine who wins.
We do not, and that is not a burden I want on my shoulders.
Yeah. Whereas
that is between you and your poll.
Associated Press, they call the elections, they also don't determine that. But Kaylin, drilling down a little bit, let's talk about these candidates. Pam Evett, Lieutenant Governor, has been steadily meeting with small groups across the state. I was up in Gaffney, the greater Gaffney metropolitan area, where if you guys haven't been above Broad Street lately, it's just the same. Or across the bridge, I suppose. And she's almost visited all 46 counties. So she's doing that, you know, the tried and true approach, meeting with the people, getting that, because she has the ability to do so versus some of her counterparts in Congress who are only back and forth on the weekends, essentially. A.G. Wilson continues to get his earned media, basically through statements and a lot of statements that his office issues, and also like joining in lawsuits, and also getting on TV and going out and helping other attorneys general across the country, I should say. And then Norman has been fundraising like others, but not doing major campaigning, which is also still very interesting. I know we're far out, I know it's the holidays, but I feel like we didn't even see that much campaigning when these congressmen and women were off during that 43-day break during the shutdowns. Like, I was expecting Nancy and Ralph just to be like kind of crisscrossing because that was free time, but it didn't work out. And then we have not heard anything from Josh Kimbrell, the state senator. So maybe we'll see him doing more from the pulpit in the state Senate when they return. But when we start talking about earned media, and you're talking about some people rising above more than others who are doing a little bit more of the footwork, does that translate? I mean, is that like a tried and true method when we talk about earned media, getting those headlines, getting the attention? Is that yet to be seen? I mean, we're talking about these outbursts and episodes, the latest with, you know, Congresswoman Mace. You covered this event back in October at Charleston International Airport that really brought things to the fore, and now it's back again. New York Times out with that piece, even though we've all been covering that because that investigation came out from the international airport and those authorities. So is this reverberating? Do you think that they think this will translate into votes in June, or do we need to focus on policy and affordability issues like everyone's talking about?
Well, like I said, the first real hurdle for all of these candidates when you're running statewide is for people to know who you are. There's nothing worse than being a candidate running for office and someone looks at you after you shake your hand and they say, "Who are you?" That means you haven't done your due diligence to be reaching people where they are. And in the instance specifically of Airport Gate, I will say that from where I sit in the 1st Congressional District, as someone who's been covering Nancy since 2017, this has had a unique sticking power. It is reverberating, and it's not just because the airport released more documents that we FOIA'd for and obtained. It's really stuck around. I'm from Eastern North Carolina. My family loves me, but they do not love me so much that they're going to read every single article I write, and that's okay. But when I went home a couple of weeks ago, that was the first question from every family member of every political stripe in my family was, what's going on with Nancy Mace? And the fact that that happened tells me that this has had real staying power. It's reverberated not just in South Carolina, but across the country. And I've gotten lots of emails from readers who have pretty much told me that this incident is now a lens through which they are looking at the Congresswoman, even having them revisit things about how she interacted with a constituent at an Ulta beauty store just down the street in town center, and her floor speech in February. So it's interesting to me that this is kind of the point. I won't say it's the point of no return for her, but given the very newsworthy year that the Congresswoman has had, it is so fascinating to me that this is the issue. This was the moment that I'm hearing more and more from people, that people are tilting their heads and wondering what's going on.
And getting in a fight with airport authorities does nothing for the constituent, right? Like, what does that translate into for the voter?
Right. And Nancy, I will say, if I step back about 10,000 feet, Nancy has been positioning herself as a fighter for as long as she's been running for public office. Even when she ran against Senator Lindsey Graham back in 2014, she's always wanted to be seen as a woman who is a fighter. So it was a choice. It was a choice for her to double down and stand behind whatever happened there. We only know what's been released through incident reports at this time and video, which doesn't have audio, which all of us would like to hear. So we're working with what we got.
A lot of bleeps.
We're working with what we got.
Well, and then to go on to Kaitlan Collins this week, where, Kaitlan Collins and CNN called her out on that report and said, you said you backed the blue and then you do all this, you attack these folks who were at that time in shutdown and not getting paid to do that job besides Charleston local authorities, and then yelling at them, and then to accuse Attorney General Alan Wilson, who's the top law enforcement officer in the state, of stalking her, a criminal charge, by going on Kaitlan Collins the next night and just responding to things that she said at the invitation of CNN. At what point, is the play going to be, let these two fight it out, let Pam and Ralph try and be like the normal adults in the room? Or, not that Alan's not being a normal adult, but is that going to be the strategy here? I know we're so far away, but.
We're so far away, but isn't it fun to pretend like we know?
God forbid we predict South Carolina politics.
I want that crystal ball really badly. I would have loved it in 2018, but I do think right now, if I'm other candidates not named Alan Wilson and not named Nancy Mace, I am staying out and letting them fight it out. And then I'm going to find whatever my opening is going to be. And I'm almost certain, I don't think it's happened yet, but you have to think, for Alan Wilson, to your point, top law enforcement official in the state, I'm waiting for the ad to drop of him saying, I defend and stand with our police, and she yells at them.
And to that effect, my gosh, we could do political consultant work for free here, Kaitlan.
Never for free.
Never for free. Don't take that credit, please. No, but still, that's the thing too. We haven't even seen, I don't want to say the worst of, I'm using air quotes here, the worst of the campaign yet, which is going to be the ad wars. We're going to wait for that to be late February, March. Then you'll be like, oh my God, please put me out of my misery here for the June primary.
And all the text messages that I'm sure will ensue. But it is interesting, though, that we're already seeing this level of vitriol in a race that's 7 months away in a state that is known for politics being ugly, crass, rude, and really, really mean.
Well, and that's why I remember when Congresswoman Mace made her announcement at the Citadel, and I asked her, I'm like, you're an alumni here, honor, duty, and respect is the motto of the Citadel. Are you willing to uphold that motto? And I didn't really get the easy thing would just say yes, but I did not get a direct answer on that one. But moving on, Austin McCubbin, a senior advisor with the campaign, not to keep digging in here, but this has been the news. He jumped ship from Nancy's campaign, which is shocking but not surprising personnel development, as Twitter's full of people that used to work for Nancy Mace. There's plenty of people out there that go off of her, including Wesley Donahue. Big names in South Carolina politics. So I'm wondering, how does this continue for her going forward? Yes, you can keep getting your earned media, which helps you with national fundraising to an extent, but national fundraising people, they don't vote in South Carolina primaries. So I'm like, how does this work? You also need a team, and she has said that she doesn't have friends, and politics is about relationships, and you don't have any friends. It's like, where does this go? When does the field start calling? Is it going to be looking at fundraising numbers? Is it going to be who has more ads? I'm just wondering, when you look at the perspective of campaigns you've covered, how things might be shaken out in the next couple months.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that she does still have a team. Let's just be clear. Just because Austin has left, it doesn't mean that she is without. She has a really tight-knit group of people who go to war for her every single day. And that's what people on your payroll are supposed to do. So she's not going it totally alone, but she is definitely at the wheel. That is something that Nancy has always done. Nancy likes being in control of her campaigns. I remember talking to her in 2017 after she won a special election to the state house, and we talked about the lessons learned from when she ran statewide in 2014. And I've been thinking a lot about that conversation now that she actually is running statewide again. But she told me at that time that she had a consultant. They told her how to do her hair. They told her what to wear. They told her how to speak, how to interact with people, and she hated it. She said she didn't feel like herself. She felt like she was going through the motions and playing a part. So when she ran in 2017, she wore all black. She wore her hair down. She didn't necessarily have the pearls. You know, she was doing things on her terms and her way. And for a very long time, that has been how Nancy has run all of her campaigns. And she has had campaign managers, but I can say without a doubt that Nancy runs her campaigns. Her hair has changed. The pearls are here. It's a little different now. So I do really wonder how that strategy is shifting yet again. And I'm not zeroing in on her fashion because she's a woman in politics. I really, really hate when that's used as a shorthand for something else. I'm zeroing in on it because everything in politics is intentional. Everything is a choice. And every choice that you make is an opportunity to be virtue signaling, including with very large crucifixes around your neck. It's a choice. Everything is a choice. You and I make choices. I wear my hair down, you wear your hair back. It's a choice. And you're trying to signal something. She stopped dyeing her hair. She's trying to appear more mature. Why is she doing that at the same time that all of these other things are happening in the news? I think we're going to have to see how this shakes out for her. She has always been a really strong fundraiser, but I don't know how she does that when her message can oscillate sometimes a little too wildly.
Yeah, and before we pivot too, I mean, it's just a matter of, you can do one thing when it comes to running a congressional race. We're talking statewide. Like, you need to have a network. Like, everyone always asks about, oh, is Lindsey Graham going to lose? Lindsey Graham, I've seen that man in so many primaries win them outright, not get dragged into a runoff, 2014, when everyone was going from nothing. He just wins straight up. And of course, we're still talking about the Trump endorsement, which now with Austin out of there, seems like it's pretty much off the table. Not to mention when you see the ads that Lieutenant Governor Evan has put out with Trump saying things about Nancy that he did back in 2022. And that campaign got Trump's permission to use that. I mean, it's just, if she doesn't get the Trump endorsement, then ... I
mean, everybody has been fighting for the Trump endorsement since they said, I am running for governor.
Correct, yes.
So that is going to be pivotal in this race. And I've had a lot of people ask me when they think he's going to endorse. I'm going to do that rare thing where I make a guess. Yeah, I'm going to make a gamble. If I were President Trump, I wouldn't have to wear heels. And if I were President Trump, I would hold my power until the very, very end. Yeah. Because he can loom it over all of them for as long as he wants, and then he can make it matter when he wants it to count the most in a runoff situation.
Exactly. And then also, I think you weigh in on who has Trump's ear in this state, too. You're talking about Lindsey Graham, who already has this endorsement, and the governor as well. I mean, so it's going to be a lot of factors at play that we'll be watching over the next couple of months. Let's pivot to the Democrats. You had some news coming out of Charleston this week with lawyer Mullins McLeod, one of the Democrats running. He held a press briefing on Tuesday morning about his May 2025 disorderly conduct arrest, in which dash cam video obtained by the Post and Courier showed a disoriented and belligerent McLeod that his lawyer at the time said was not due to the influence of drugs. This incident has completely eclipsed his nascent campaign. So what did he have to say about that this week, and how is that campaign going? Because I haven't really seen much from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to overcome images like that, but you can never say never in South Carolina politics. I'll clarify for you, it wasn't him who held the press conference, it was his attorney. And his attorney got up there and told us that this was an unlawful arrest, that the incident report that everyone has obtained and the dash cam footage that we obtained doesn't actually match with the body camera footage that police have, and that now the attorneys have obtained through that process of getting evidence to build a case. Here's the thing about police body cam footage. It is not a public record in the state of South Carolina. I would love to FOIA for body cam footage. We can ask, they can deny under the law. But the attorneys have it. I would like for them to share it with all of us so that everyone can see whether what they're saying is true. But they're contending that this was an unlawful arrest, that he was not being belligerent, that he was actually practicing a campaign speech at the time that police stopped him on the high battery, that he wasn't wearing boxers, he was wearing shorts, which I could not believe an attorney was saying at a press conference, it has pockets. Everyone knows underwear doesn't have pockets. This is absurd.
This could be a moment for underwear with pockets.
I'm a big fan of pockets in general. But
We're just coming up with ideas up here, Caitlin.
all left and right. But it is really interesting, and one of the most explosive things, though, that I would say that Mullins-McLeod's attorney is alleging is that the police, when they were walking up to him, said, this guy's going to jail. So before they put hands on him, which anytime a police officer impedes your ability to continue moving forward, whether or not there's cuffs involved or not, you are considered to be under arrest. They had decided, allegedly, in this body camera footage that we don't have, that they had already decided he was going to jail before telling him what he was being charged with, which, by the way, they say he was never told what he was being charged with, that he wouldn't identify himself, but the body camera footage shows him not only identifying himself, but spelling his name multiple times and even identifying a spelling mistake that one of the police officers made. So it's really, really interesting, and we're stuck right now with public records telling us one thing and records that we want to be public that are allegedly saying another.
It's almost like a Charleston Airport incident part 2, if you will. We have a lot of
But
police
shirtless.
reports going
This
on
one
already.
I have had to learn a lot more in this past year about the laws and the courts between the speech and debate clause and the unique protections afforded to members of Congress. I really wish I'd gone to law school.
But again, regardless, I feel like of what happens with this situation, the images are the images, the audio is the audio. Like, great, you can fight the details in court, but if I'm Jermaine Johnson, who's the other Democrat in this race, like, my campaign ads are pretty much made for me right there. So, and again, of course, the South Carolina Democratic Party has disowned Mullins-McLeod and said, please do not run. They have put that statement out there. They say, we do not support you. Not that the party jumps in primaries, but they are there to support you in the general election. So not a good deck to have, but there is Columbia Representative Jermaine Johnson, who jumped in the race, and he's kept his head down a good bit. He's in this building phase, but no doubt that he'll be looking to capitalize on spicy floor debates in the House when they get back in January through May. Viral video moments, which he's known for having. And we've seen him do this, this normal run-of-the-mill type thing with doing what he's been doing, weighing in on big topics like DEI, CRT. And again, those aren't going to be like necessarily winning issues on the campaign trail, but I feel like he's going to be able to use that bully pulpit in a way that we'll see Josh Kimbrell doing in the Senate as well for the Republicans. So how do you feel like Jermaine's entrance into the race has changed it? What have you heard from Democrats?
I think there's excitement that there's more than Mullins-McLeod in the race. I do think that Democrats are hungry for another option potentially, but so far one has yet to materialize in a real way. It is very quiet, but I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think Democrats are trying to be strategic, and just like Republicans are doing, you got to start with your base. Because before you can even be on the ballot in November, you got to make sure that you're the nominee after June. So you want to make sure that your people who you know are going to vote in that June primary are going to vote for you. So sometimes that takes the form of quieter campaigning, house parties, going to local groups, party groups, hanging out, being seen at different forums on different topics. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see plenty of Democrats, for example, if there's an affordable housing forum, it would make sense. Just to go out and quietly introduce yourself to people is a strategy. You don't have to be loud for people to know your name.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what I've been seeing with Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett and covering her in these small events. And yes, is it rough to have a crowd of 20 people show up? Not that you guys aren't a beautiful crowd. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about these events. It is humbling because you are running, you're asking, then you expect to see these Trump-like rallies or Nikki Haley rallies with 200, 300 people that we covered. And then you go into a room, it's like 15 people. But that's really where it's made at this stage in the game.
And honestly, I love the smaller events because there's more authentic interaction as voters and people who are interested, they can push people more. Because at a rally, you're there and you participate, but it's almost like going to a concert. You can sing along to the songs, but you can't really ask any of the questions. So when you're in these smaller groups, it's an incredible opportunity, and regardless of your political affiliation, I would strongly, strongly encourage you, go to local political events where you might get some face time with a candidate. If you really have a question that you want them on the record about, get them to answer your question. You're probably going to have a better shot than me and my press badge because they want your vote.
That's true. I mean, and they're in your neck of the woods too, and I think that's going to be something to see who's going where. And I know some people are saying, oh, well, she has to work so hard to go and get these. It's like, well, that's part of the game. It's not all just TV ads. But let's pivot to SCO1, where we are right now. Look at the Republicans again. Filing doesn't open for these races until March. But FEC data and announcements show that 10 Republicans, you have to name all 10 of them, Kaylin, I'm just kidding.
Oh, God, don't make me.
have registered, including most recently Charleston County Councilwoman Jenny Costa Honeycutt, one of the 10. 3 have raised significant funds so far, including Dr. Sam McCowan, who is self-funded so far with about $1 million on hand, mostly his. State Representative Mark Smith has $366,000 on hand, half of which was a loan, and veteran Alex Pelbath has $170,000 on hand. So where does the Republican side of the SCO1 primary race stand right now? What's the campaign trail like down here? What's the vibe? Is it also just as quiet as the governor's race in some senses, or are people pounding the pavement more down here?
People are shaking hands more down here. People are going to the Citadel Republican Society dinner, for example. Folks are going to the different Charleston County GOP meetings. You know, it really is kind of similar to the Democrats running for governor in that everyone's just trying to get that FaceTime in with folks early and often. Hi, see you again. Good to see you, Susan. You know, just continue to see people. I think the other dynamic here in SCO1 is that this is a wide open race that this district hasn't seen in a really long time. And for Republicans, with how the map is drawn now, it's even more exciting. So right now, everyone is sort of queuing up, trying to figure each other out, size up the other candidates, see who's actually going to be a candidate come March. Because historically in SC1, there's plenty of people who file on FEC who I never meet, who I never talk to, and it's not because I don't want to talk to them, it's just they throw their name out, they file, and then they decide, maybe not. Maybe not. And people are allowed to change their minds. And I will say when it comes to SC1, one thing that I found really, really, really interesting, especially on the Republican side, Nancy Mace has said to us that she is only going to run for governor. That has not stopped Republicans running now in South Carolina 1 from making some sort of point of contrast to her, even if they're not saying her name. And I was talking about it with my editor the other day, and if any reporter listens to this and does this story, I will hunt you down.
Don't do it, guys.
I will hunt you down. But I have noticed a real trend with the Republicans in SC1 that everyone's making the case of, I'm normal. That's the pitch right now from Republicans in SC1 is, I'm normal, I'm calm. It's this real point of contrast because, yes, we do have a very well-known congresswoman who makes a lot of headlines. And they're saying, send me to Washington, let me do the work. And it's a very almost old school throwback pitch to people to say, I want to do the job. I don't want to make headlines. I want to just go up there and make sure that infrastructure gets taken care of, that cost of living comes down, that potholes get fixed in your neighborhood, that the floods don't come and wash us all away.
So they didn't read her New York Times opinion piece about what's the point of Congress, I guess.
I guess they say the point of Congress is I want to go.
If you don't want to be there, you don't have to be there. I mean, no one's making you go there.
No, and we've seen plenty of retirements this year.
And Kaylin, I think to that point too, I think the broader message too is that message of a lot of candidates are making stability and reliability. I know at least Pam Evitt is because she's running on the legacy of McMaster, who she's been with since 2017. And I think that's something that transplants want, that business wants. I mean, if you're retired, you want your retirement to be steady and calm. Like, you don't want someone rocking the boat, messing things up. Not saying that she has power over the markets, but when you look at how things shape out, people want stability. And I think that's something that we have seen from the governor down for the most part in the state so far. And then we have people saying, well, we got to change up Columbia, to which I'm always saying, well, Republicans have been in power for 23 years. What exactly are we looking to change here? And there is stuff to change, and there's fractures within the Republican Party at the State House too, and that's going to be a big factor on the campaign trail. We talked about the Freedom Caucus too. But I have a question about what we saw in terms of just how the SCO1 district is looking in terms of, could it be purple? Could it be blue? Is it solidly red? We saw a Cook Political Report saying it's still a solid red district, but Amy Walter has flirted with this idea that if there is a strong enough backlash in the midterms, that this district could be flipped. I mean, are you seeing any credence to that? Do you think that could happen, especially after they redistrict this area so Republican?
Okay, so I've covered South Carolina 1 since Mark Sanford was dethroned. This is a wild district. I do not think it is a swing district. I do not think it is a purple district. I do think that as the lines are currently drawn, it is red with an asterisk. That's the way I see this district right now and how it's in play. Because yes, when the conditions are right, anything is possible. We saw that in 2018. It was a district that was drawn where no Democrat should ever have won, and guess what? Joe Cunningham won it. So when the conditions are right, and one candidate is stronger than another and can make a compelling case to voters here who have an independent streak to them, anything could happen. I do think it is a tough wall to climb, though. I think the conditions really have to be, everything has to be firing in the right way for a Democrat to overcome this map. But I have seen a lot of frustration from this district about the way that things are happening now, regardless of political party. I'm thinking especially of the repeated calls and demands for town halls, which, by the way, came from Republicans and Democrats. I had lots of Republicans asking me when certain members were going to hold town halls because they just had questions. Yeah, and this is a district that used to hold a lot of town halls. Mark Sanford held a town hall that lasted 12 hours. I covered it. I sat in the grass. It was a long frickin' day. And we don't have town halls anymore. So I know that this first district, there is a real voracious hunger for people to go up and work for y'all. So it leans Republican, but anything could happen.
And to that effect, and kind of wrapping up here too, we're looking at the Democrats on the SCO1 side, this primary race up in June. So far, there are 4 Democrats in this race per FEC filings: Matthew Fulmer, Max Diaz, Mac Defford, and Mayra Rivera Vasquez. Always a hard one for me to do. Ours are hard for me. Defford is running for the nomination a second time after losing to Michael B. DeFord, sorry. I hope that doesn't make or break the campaign. But he lost to Michael B. Moore, very close loss last time. But he told me the other day, I was talking to him on the phone, and he was saying that he's basically been running since then, understandably. You know, he knows the district, he's been working. I think he just maybe closed up his legal shop. I think he's focusing full time on this race right now. And he has some theories on how it could work out. And again, like you're saying, like, things can happen, especially in the first congressional district too. And of course, it is a midterm year. It's not a presidential year, so that adds a whole different factor in there too. But tell me, do you think that's a little too optimistic? I know we just kind of touched on this stuff, but again, a lot of people have been added to this district too. So I'm just wondering if that's a factor, if there's some glimmers of hope for these Democrats that are really trying to get some wins in the state, especially when everyone's talking about redistricting, which is not on the table in South Carolina as far as I can tell.
I think that Mac learned a lot of lessons from his first run. We talked extensively when he told me that he was going to run again and give it another go. I think Myra's really fascinating. She's our first Latina candidate ever. And she's even planning to campaign partly in Spanish, which I'm super excited to see because we are a growing district. We do have a diverse population. But I do think that just as it goes with any candidate, the case has to be strong, clear, compelling. And one thing that I've seen consistently through the years from some South Carolina Democrats, it happens in the Republicans too, but sometimes South Carolina Democrats really struggle to communicate that clear, crystallized message to voters, especially when they're getting counter messaging from Republicans that are saying that this is being a socialist or, you know, it's Pelosi part 2. You know, so Democrats in South Carolina have to work extra hard to make sure that what they're pitching is clear, and then also push back against a really big narrative that's being funded by millions of dollars. So.
And then we don't have time to talk about the Senate race, but of course there's a lot going on. That's another statewide race I'll be watching, as well as constitutional officers. The Attorney General's race is very interesting to watch as well. But Kaylin, just wrapping up here, what should folks be paying attention to in the next couple months when it comes to the campaign trail? I never hear it in real time, so it's always exciting. But what will you be watching? How are you going to start maybe sensing the differentiation between the candidates?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching for when people start echoing each other, because when people start saying the same thing, it means that they're getting messaging and data back that tells them that they should be saying certain keywords or positioning themselves in a certain way. And so we want to try to always kind of unwrap, why is everyone positioning themselves like a fighter right now? Why is everyone trying to say that they're normal and rational? You know, those are things that you kind of want to read between the lines about, why are you pitching yourself the way that you are? Is it authentic with who you are as a person, or is this a poll-tested version of you that we'll see go away in 2 months?
And I think that's going to be interesting to that point, that there is not too much light between these candidates, at least on the Republican gubernatorial side, right? Like a lot of similarities, judicial reform, no income taxes, wild things. Let me know how you can replace like billions of dollars of revenue. We'd be very interested to see that happen. But these are the big points, and that's why I think personality, temperament, and other factors kind of come into play, and that's really, it's going to be almost a popularity contest at the end of the day, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a lot of hair splitting. It's really, that's one of the things that I have to say I enjoy the most about covering primaries, is that everyone theoretically is battling to be team captain. Same goes for the Democrats. It's just, what are those little nuances? What are those differences that you're making? And does it land really big, or is it landing in a small way that's just quietly effective? I just always find that really fascinating. When I talk to people about politics and I talk to people about what they care about, it's almost always, we start talking about policy and then it just kind of fades into people talking about the things that are really heavy on their hearts and minds right now. And that's the thing, is like, politics is always pitched as something that's so polarizing, but really, like, at the end of the day, like, I keep hearing the same concerns. It's just, what's the philosophy that people think is going to be the solution in their lives? And so I look forward to seeing how candidates make that case and what voters respond to and say, I'm betting on this horse, let's give it a shot. And this is our first open governor's race since a state representative named Nikki Haley ran. Yeah. So this is going to be a big one. And
then, of course, we didn't even talk about the legislature, and that will just be a compounding factor, too. You never know what's going to come out of there, what big issue of the day takes hold, and we're all of a sudden talking about some issue was not on our radar right now. So it will be fascinating to watch, and we'll be doing it with Caitlin Byrd, senior politics reporter at the Post and Courier. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all for being here with us at Hobcaw Brewing in Mount Pleasant.
And that's our final live lead taping of the year. But don't worry, we will have another one next month. That's right, January 8th, guys. Come join us here in studio in Columbia from 6 to 8 p.m. with me and SC Public Radio's Mylon Schechter. We will be talking to House Speaker Merle Smith as we preview the legislative session. You can find details about that at southcarolinapublicradio.org. Come see us January 8th here in Columbia. And thanks again for listening to the pod. You can show us your appreciation by leaving us a voicemail at 803-563-7169 or a review wherever you find your podcasts. Stay up to date with the latest news on SCETV.org and SouthCarolinaPublicRadio.org, and don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lead, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.
Another question is, will there ever be more of South of Spooky episodes?
Listen, folks, listen, okay? It's a big lift.
Ask this guy.
It's a big lift.
You know, I understand how
I've
the Beatles...
got kids now.
I understand how the Beatles broke up, you know?
Oh, gosh.